my recent content upgrade there. I've been on this content grind. I've been making a lot of stuff. I've been taking a lot of time to make some really quality content for you guys. So hopefully you guys have been liking it. Hopefully you guys can have the time to share it with everyone else as well. And if you can, leave a comment in those videos that I always post. So, you know, really help with the engagement. Okay. All right. So before I start, I want to go over futures right now. Okay. So futures is looking kind of eerie. It's kind of eerie here. Okay. Because it looks similar to this area. All right. And if you notice right here, I believe, when was it? I think CPI data came out like right over here, right before the sell-off or right here at the sell-off. And for some reason, right, something looks very, very odd and eerie because this right here, this consolidation looks exactly like this one, right? I mean, it obviously is not the same type of chart pattern. You know, we were looking at a flag here while we're looking at an ascending channel, okay? But, right, with CPI data coming out again, right, I mean, the catalyst is similar and the chart pattern is similar. And the fact that we are basically stuck in the supply range between 4130 to 4200 is kind of indicative of what could happen tomorrow, right? Now, we have core CPI and CPI coming out. And if you guys don't remember what core CPI is and the reason why the Fed always looks at the core CPI value, right? The core CPI looks at inflation excluding food and energy prices, right? And if you guys are wondering why would you exclude food and energy prices, well, those two commodity prices are very volatile, right? So they tend to remove that for core CPI, right? But the overall CPI value includes food and energy prices, right? Those are the differences, right? So hopefully you guys understood that. It's very, very easy to understand. If you need some clarification, please let me know. But yeah, so, you know, with CPI, I would say, you know, first of all, the expected number tomorrow, okay, for CPI year over year is 8.7%. Okay, and June's CPI came in at 9.1%, another high from May. Okay, and so obviously this expectation is a really big low, right? I mean, it drops from 9.1% from the actual value of the CPI from June. The expectations for this July's CPI number is 8.7%, right? So that's a 0.40% drop, right? 0.40%, right? So, you know, let's see if, you know, the expected number actually becomes reality, right? Because that'll be very, very, you know, exciting to see at the same time. But you know, people might be very skeptical that CPI has actually fallen, right? Since prices are still pretty high, right? Even if gas prices have gone down, you know, it's still a bit. There's still a lot of ways to go, is what I'm saying. There's a long ways to go before we start dropping back down to, like, you know, early 2021 prices. Okay, so with core CPI though, here's the thing. So CPI, they're expecting a drop, but core CPI year over year is 6.1% for the month of July. And guess what the core CPI of month of June was? 5.9%. Okay. So they're expecting a 0.20% increase in the core CPI. And guess what? The Federal Reserve tends to look at the core CPI, not the CPI, right? So, you know, I just want to see if the Fed will start to, you know, well, kind of the major things I want to see from the Fed if we do have even a higher core CPI than the expected number, and the expected number is already higher than June's number, I would expect the Fed to start really laying out the groundwork to increase interest rates by 1 whole percentage point, right? So if you guys remember, I believe back when they're just describing and telling us whether or not they're looking to increase interest rates by 75 BP basis points, they were already considering a 1 whole percentage rate to really tackle inflation. All right, so depending on how inflation numbers come out tomorrow, it's gonna move the markets a lot, definitely overnight. So during pre-market as well, but since CPI numbers come out an hour before the market opens, I would expect to see kind of a digestion move during the market, during the pre-market, and then kind of have a flat open at open. Okay, so watch out for that, because we can see a huge volatile move on both sides at the same time, right? So we can have one big move to the upside and back to the downside, or vice versa, right? So don't get stuck on looking at the very first opening candlestick, right? Focus on waiting for at least 15 minutes or so until the market has kind of died down and priced in more of the CPI data, okay? And then we'll be able to see what the trend is for the rest of the day, all right? But for now, my kind of prediction, I guess you would say, is that we kind of price in the CPI data during pre-market. But ideally for me, I would like it if we have a nice gap down, since I am short and I do have UVXY calls. But obviously I can't go by my bias. But yeah, that's kind of it for CPI data. That's what I want you guys to know. Just remember that for the CPI year over year, they're expecting a drop, but for core CPI, they're expecting an increase. Okay, and remember, the core CPI is what the Federal Reserve looks at. Okay, that's what they look at, right? But the actual core CPI with for the month of July, not year over year, it's at 0.5%, which is down from 0.7% from June. But I still think that the year over year is a lot more important to me for the longer term, because remember, the Federal Reserve is looking at long-term trends to determine what they can do now, right? So that's the reason why I'm always focusing on the year over year data for CPI. So both CPI year over year and both core CPI year over year, right? So that's kind of the two data points that I want to be looking at tomorrow morning. All right. So anyone else have any questions, or any questions at all about CPI? I apologize if I'm all over the place. I wasn't able to kind of make a good summary for you all. So if you guys do have any questions, please let me know. If not, then I'll go over futures here again. So we are using this 4130 level as a resistance, okay? And it's kind of oh, Joel, you said something. You said after the open, can we expect a clear trend? I might have missed it if you said so. You know what? That's something that's kind of trudging into speculative territory there. So I wouldn't be able to know, obviously, but I would say you could expect a clear trend, especially during a day like CPI, right, where a catalyst is leading the open. Does that make sense? Right, so with the major catalyst like CPI coming out, I would expect to see the market kind of follow through whatever the pre-market action, okay, or whatever the data was, and once the official equity markets are open at 9:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, I would expect more traders and investors to start reeling in from whatever the CPI data is. Okay, so hopefully that answers your question there. Oh, 6 likes. Thank you guys. Okay, so I'm just gonna think that you guys understand. Okay, so for ES here, like I said, this 4130 level has been used as level of support multiple times in the past, right? Okay, but now we're flipping it to a resistance right now, currently, right? So, you know, I would say that we have to be very, very cautious in a sense overnight. Be wary of this 4130 level, because if you do flush, even before CPI data comes out, right? That can also happen, guys. You can suddenly flush right before the CPI data comes out, and if the CPI data is better than expected, or than the actual expected numbers, we can see a nice pump up right before open, right? So, hi Perez, what's up? What's up? What I miss? You just missed the kind of my general overview on what I expect for CPI and core CPI as well. And I kind of explained the difference between those two values. It's, you know, obviously it's not a huge difference between those two values, but it's important that there's a difference between the CPI and the core CPI. But yeah, stuff like that. But mind you can take a look at the first, I guess 10 minutes or so, 10 to 15 minutes. Not 10 to 15 minutes. I would say 10 minutes, since the live hasn't even been on for about 15 minutes. But yeah, I just started to talk about futures here, and this 41300 level is critical for bulls and bears. So far we're rejecting off of 41300, and we flipped it to a level of resistance. So that's not good, obviously, right? That's not good for bulls, okay? And it's obviously a little bit better for bears, since that's kind of giving you a signal that there's potential for sellers to continue to come in overnight. And like I said before, I talked about futures, I said there's a possibility that we can see a big flush overnight right before CPI data comes out. And then when it comes out, we might see a huge bounce during the pre-market and right before the market open. Okay, so that can happen as well. There's a lot of possibilities here. And that's what tends to happen when there's a big catalyst like CPI. Okay, now for the intraday time frame here, on a 2-hour time frame for ES, okay, SPY futures, we're seeing a nice ascending channel, and today we kind of peaked below this ascending channel, okay, right? So we came back up, we bounced up and retested the ascending channel support, okay, which is also a very perfect coinciding hit at 4130, right? So we literally hit this ascending support trend line, which coincided with the 4130 level, right? So obviously, you know, technical analysis wise, it's very satisfying to see when the price, you know, respects your trend lines to a T. So it's very, very satisfying to see. But also, okay, I want to also bring up this intraday chart pattern I'm looking at as well. We're seeing a H pattern as well, okay? So that's kind of bearish. All right, that's a little bit bearish there, okay? And for the fact that the intraday SMAs, my 10 and 21 momentum SMAs are starting to curl downward, okay? And for the fact that the 10 SMAs are already being used as a level of resistance, that's also indicative of a bearish trend, okay? And the 21 SMA is following close behind. So just be cautious tomorrow morning at market open. Make sure you guys are managing your positions well, right? I'm net short right now, okay? I do have some long positions, but I did also hedge those positions with my UVXY calls. But I am short Apple right now, okay? I signaled it out in the chat, okay? My Discord, my private CFO Discord chat room. So if you guys want to know what I did, make sure you guys join tonight. But yeah, that's kind of it for SPY futures. Let me actually go to SPY now. SPY, same thing, okay? So this 411.50 level, I've been talking about this level all day today in the private CFO Discord. Okay, I've been talking about it all day because we've been flipping it into support and flipping it into resistance multiple times. However, okay, we're also seeing some bearish momentum coming in. How do I know this? Well, we saw some yesterday. Okay, we're rejected right off of that ascending resistance trend line. Okay, and we're also using the 10 and 21 momentum SMAs as resistance, We are now rejecting off of it instead of trying to get right back above it. And even today on the 2-hour time frame for SPY, what do you guys see here? The 10 SMA has officially crossed below the 21 SMA. Look, it even tried to come back above it and retested itself on the 21 SMA, but it immediately rejected down, and we're now crossing below. So far I am biased because of what I'm observing, okay, and also I also have short positions, right? So that's the reason why I'm biased. All right, that's a little disclaimer there, right? Don't just trust whatever I say. I'm just basing everything off of my technical analysis right here, right? I'm just being confident in my TA, right? You don't have to be confident in my TA. You can be confident in yours. TA can become very subjective at some point, so take everything at a kind of a surface level here. All this information that I'm giving you guys, but remember, the objective kind of lesson here for you all is that don't trade the market open. All right, wait until we see a clear trend, especially when we have a catalyst like CPI data, right? And make sure you guys remember this objective level of 411.50, because this can be a very vital and crucial level of resistance tomorrow, which can potentially head us back down to this 407 to 406.80 level. Now, this is our next huge level of intraday support. Why do I say that? Because the 50 SMA on the 2-hour time frame, which also provides very, very good support, is coinciding with this 407 level, right? If you guys want to use whole numbers, right? So right now the 50 SMA is at 406.83. So tomorrow, if we head back down, I would expect the 50 SMA to continue to rise and eventually hit that 407 level, which means the price will continue to move downward and downward and downward until it's able to retest this 50 SMA or the 407 line and potentially have a double bottom bounce or a triple bottom bounce, right? I've already given this technical analysis to my CFO Swing Watch members on Sunday. So if any of my members are here right now, you guys should know this already. If not, go back to the TA video that I've sent you guys, that private TA video that I sent you guys on Sunday on the newsletter, okay? So this 407 to 406.80 level can become a triple bottom, okay, based on this anchor point here and this anchor point, or just a double bottom based on this anchor point and this potential bottom on the right here, okay? Does anyone else have any questions? But remember, you guys have to remember these two levels tomorrow, 411.50 and 407 or 406.80. Okay? And everyone gives me a thumbs up in the chat if you guys understood what I'm saying. Big thumbs up. Perfect. Perfect. Thumbs up. Nice. You guys are all writing thumbs up. Okay. So, Miner, let me go over NVIDIA for you now. Okay. So, all right. So we have NVIDIA, and then Joel, if you're still in here, I'm gonna go over your list of tickers as well. So what happened with NVIDIA is that they gave a kind of a preliminary warning sign that they're not gonna meet revenue expectations, and they kind of gave a guidance on what they're gonna expect as demand for chips slow down because of, people are not staying inside anymore as much, and people are just being active outside of their homes, and no one's trying to build PCs as much anymore and stuff like that, right? So there's less demand in chips, and that's kind of making the NVIDIA kind of have an outlook for the fact that they're wondering if they can sustain or see a sustainable growth in demand. But so far in the short term, they're seeing that there's most likely going to be a really huge stoppage in that big demand that we saw, that demand growth that we saw the past 2 years, right? So that caught a lot of investors to, by surprise, right? With the CHIPS Bill Act, passing, right? And with Micron said to, they're looking to commit $40 billion to manufacture chips in the U.S., right? U.S.-made chips, using the credits and grants from the bill, that's pretty surprising that NVIDIA is being a little bit negative here. But here's the thing. Their earnings announcement is later this month, right? August 24th after hours. And I think they kind of did a big brain move here where because of the fact that they said that they're expecting lower revenues, right? And most likely a lower revenue from their expectations, right? So I believe the expectations for revenue is 7.27 billion, right? So who knows? It might be like 6.5 billion, 6.9 billion, but whatever it is, it's going to be lower than expected. So NVIDIA here, I would say technically now, it looks like it's starting a new downtrend. We popped below the 50 SMA for the first time today in a long time, right? After a few weeks here, okay? It was like, 2 weeks and a half? So, this kind of tells me that the semis are weak. I mean, well, obviously today, the semi industry wasn't very, very weak. It was one of the weakest sectors out there, along with tech, which is also the weakest sector out there. So semis kind of tend to be indicative of what could happen in the future. They kind of lead on what could happen with the rest of the tech sector, especially. So with the semi industry kind of heading downward like this, I would say it's kind of bad. You might see a much bigger sellout tomorrow. So be on your toes, guys. And if you see here, the semiconductor ETF that I look at, SMH, right? It's not shake my head. It just, the ticker symbol is called SMH, right? The semiconductor ETF. It's lost the 10 SMA. It's lost this uptrend, this higher lows and higher highs trend. Okay, so I would expect to see a new lower highs and lower lows trend to start, which is an overall downtrend. Okay, so minor, I would say with the big sellout that we had today, also with the volume, the big pop in selling volume, which is more than the average volume today, I would say we might revisit 168.50 tomorrow. You said tons of NVIDIA calls came in today. Oh, okay, that's interesting. Interesting. Yeah, so since we did decide to hold this 168.50 level, this level is gonna be like, it's gonna be a major support level that I will be looking at for NVIDIA. Don't take your eye off of this level. We did bounce off of it, but there's a possibility that we can come back down early in the morning. Okay, and that could flush out all the calls that came in today, right? So make sure you guys are looking at the video. So thank you, Miner, for that recommendation. All right, Joel, let's take a look at your list of names. You said QQQ, Apple, Amazon, Microsoft, Meta, SPY, Google. Okay, so so all the big tech names, huh? So I'll look at Apple, Amazon, Microsoft, Meta, and then Google, and then I'll look at QQQ last. So I already did SPY. Okay, so I am short Apple. Okay, so I am biased on this one. Okay, and the reason why is that, well, Apple, if the markets have a huge downturn tomorrow, okay, this one has been on such a great run, right? It's been at a huge run to the upside, right? We've been seeing an ascending channel forming for the past month or so, right? So as this channel tightens up at the top here, right, there's a possibility, just like with SMH, the semiconductor ETF, right, in the index fund there, we can see a break below this ascending support, okay, which is formed by the higher lows that you see here, okay, and come back down and break below it, creating new lower highs and lower lows, which would create, okay, a pattern like this, right? Okay, so watch out for that on Apple. Watch for a break below 164. That was my official entry for today, right? Although I did get in a little bit early. I got in above, like, I think it was 164.20-ish, I think. Around there, 120, 25.25-ish, okay? Or I think it was higher than that. I don't remember. But make sure you guys take a look at Apple. If we do break below 164, we need to clear 163.50 next in order to see that big flush to the downside, which would also see a retest of the 10 SMA here. So if you lose the 10 SMA as well, that's going to spell some trouble for Apple here. Okay, but the other thing that I want you guys to take a look at is that we are currently in a huge supply area. Okay, so we're heading towards an area where a lot of sellers are going to be contesting the current buyers that we've been seeing for the past month or so. Right, so we're currently in that area right now. All right, as we're heading towards that 170.10ish level. Okay, so yeah, Joe, I remember because they're on the 10 EMA, right? So I would say that with the 10 SMA here, if we do lose it tomorrow, there's no chance that we can see a retest of the 10 SMA and kind of come back above it. We're going to flush right away, come back down, and probably retest the 200 SMA. Okay, and for the fact that we have a gap here as well that we did not fill, right? That's going to be a little bit of a trouble here, right, for Apple if we start coming back down tomorrow, right? Especially if we break out of this ascending channel chart pattern. All right. So those are the levels for Apple. Let's take a look at Amazon. Thank you, Joe, for all this these ticker recommendations. So Amazon here. Okay. So far, it's holding this 10% plus gap up, right? And it's usually good to see a name that has been holding up a gap like this after 10% plus move, right? And for the fact that we're not even near the lows of this gap, okay, which is 132.41, just tells you how much strength this one has. However, okay. Amazon does tends to, it does tend to fill in gaps, just like SPY. Okay, so with a huge gap up like this, if the trend tomorrow is to the downside, there's a huge possibility that we can flush below 136. Okay, which could also see a retest of this 10 SMA. Right, so there's a possibility that we can bounce tomorrow. Right, so after a early morning sell-off, we can come back all the way back down and then retest the 10 SMA and then bounce. Okay, so all these names that you're giving me, Joel, there's a great possibility that we can see a downward move to retest the 10 SMA and then bounce early in the morning. Does that make sense? Right, so that's kind of the thesis I'm going to hold for all these names that are kind of near and above the 10 SMA. Right, and so for Microsoft, right, Microsoft today was actually very, very strong. I was actually taking a look at this, looking at this name. I was looking at this name earlier today. I only looked at it once, but it had a nice retest of the 10 SMA. All right, so it already had this retest. But if you go on the 2-hour time frame, right, there's something kind of wrong with this picture. Okay, so we've been making higher highs and higher lows, right? But this is the first time that we actually broke below and made a new low compared to all the higher lows that we made in the past, right? So this could be a sign, an indication that sellers are starting to kind of come in, okay? So far, obviously, if we go back to the daily time frame though, the daily candlestick looks great, right? So you might be wondering, hey Andrew, why are you focusing on the low? Well, because that tells you that buyers are starting to lose a little bit of control here. And for the fact that we came back down and broke below the 10 SMA, we kind of popped below it, right? Just tells you that there were a little bit of sellers here and there, right? Trying to push the price lower and trying to push the price away from the momentum 10 SMA. And also, the buyers were able to come in at a perfect time because this 277.80 level was a previous level of big and significant resistance, right? And so this bounce today just tells you that it used it as support, okay? And tomorrow we might see another revisit, right? And for the fact that we made lower high as well compared to Monday's candlestick, and Monday's candlestick was pretty bearish, right? So we can see a new downtrend tomorrow on Microsoft, especially if we're taking a look at the 2-hour time frame. And we come back down to retest the 10 SMA on the daily time frame. Right? And if we do, we will probably be able to see a retest of this 277.80 level once more. Okay. All right, so Brian, you said Meta, right? Well, here you go. So Meta, obviously very lagging. It's a huge lagger name, and you know it's basically forming a very odd flag. It's consolidating, okay, but you know it did have a good bounce. All right, it had a nice bounce above the 21 and the 10 SMA, so that's not bad. All right, but like I said, right, the overall tech sector was weak today. And there's a huge possibility that we can see that weakness continue tomorrow, especially into the CPI data as well. You know, like I said, make sure you guys are looking at that core CPI number, not just CPI, but the core CPI year over year, right? So Meta here, so far, if you take a look at the 2-hour time frame, all right, we're making our own little tiny base here, but, okay. The reason why I want you guys to look at the 2-hour time frame is, well, we're starting to see a diamond top. Yeah, I don't know if you guys remember this. And Joe, I know you should remember this. Okay, so if we continue to you know, form the price tomorrow, and if you conform to this diamond top, there's a good possibility that we flush back down, all right, and then retest the base support, the major base support around 155. Okay, but obviously, you know, we need to see some extreme bearishness tomorrow in order for us to see that big break to the downside to 155. Okay, but this diamond top can be a little bit lethal tomorrow. Okay, so there's a huge possibility that you guys can enter in for puts, especially if you decide to break below 167 for an earlier entry, or 166.50 for kind of a confirmed entry. Does that make sense? Okay, and for the fact that, you know, the price is already staying below the 10 SMA is kind of telling me that the momentum is dying down for buyers, and it's giving more leeway for sellers to slowly come in. Okay, but that could all change tomorrow. Who knows? Okay, so last one on here for Google, and then I'll do QQQ. So yeah, so Google here, I was looking at this all day, since it was in the CFO Swing Watch as well. But Google here, this one is also, well, same thing, same story. All right, so let me use this trend line here. Okay. So if you take a look at this trend line right here, right, which is kind of coinciding with this 117 level, all right, so make sure you guys are remembering this, all right. On the 2-hour time frame, we already had that downward crossover of the 10 and 21. Okay, so the momentum is dying down, right? And whose momentum is dying down? The buyers, right? And for the fact that we are constantly using the 10 SMA as a level of resistance since yesterday as well, can give a good rise of a possibility that we can see a big break below this ascending support that we've been making all day today. So if we even go lower on the time frame, maybe in the 15-minute time frame, right? We seem to be making some sort of a bearish flag, right? So here is the flagpole, this overall big move to the downside, and then here is our flag, right? If you want to see a little bit more of a detailed flag, right, here's our bear flag. Okay. And remember, I'm able to see these patterns, these bearish patterns, because first of all, I'm biased to the downside, and you know, just thanks to my mastery that I have in in technical analysis. Right. So if you guys were able to see this before, make sure you guys taking a look at the same time frames that I'm using, right? The 15-minute, the 2-hour, and the daily, or even the weekly. So Google here, if it breaks below 116, okay, clear break below 116, right, which is also a very huge level of support in the past. How do I know? Well, that's where we pivoted off of, right? And that's where we're able to hold above this ascending support trend line. So if you break below 116, then that's it for Google. And we're heading right back down. So if we go back to the daily time frame, we're heading right back down to 114. And when we do head back down to 114, I would expect a bounce. But a bounce from where? Well, obviously the 114 level and the 21 SMA. And that would officially mean that the price has officially caught up with the 21 SMA. Okay, you see how the 10 SMA has really so far supported the price up, but the 21 SMA has been kind of lagging behind. It's saying, hey, you go first, right? It's not even trying to attempt to follow close behind the 10 SMA. So there's a huge possibility that we can see a big break to the downside tomorrow below 116, and then a flush back down to 114 for the rest of the week. Okay, Joe? All right, Brian, I'll go over XOM after QQQ. So QQQ, same story, right? So far, QQQ hasn't lost the uptrend yet, okay? But we can see a retest of this ascending support trend line, right? So tomorrow, if we do have that retest, that means we have to go back down. Excuse me. That means we have to go back down and retest 314. Okay? So watch out. And remember, the tech sector was the most, right? It was the most weakest sector out there today. And that weakness can continue tomorrow with CPI data coming out. Because the CPI data is bad again, okay? And especially that core CPI. Remember the core CPI year over year, they're expecting an increase. Yes, they're expecting an increase from 5.9 to 6.1%. And that's what the Federal Reserve looks at to increase or keep the same interest rates right now for the long term. So if they decide to keep the 75 basis points, all right, without even considering the fact that they can potentially lower it to 50 basis points, that's also going to have a negative connotation and an overall negative sentiment on the equity market, especially the tech sector. Does that make sense? Okay, so make sure you guys take a look at those two data points tomorrow. All right, so for QQQ, watch out for that break below the 10 SMA and then a possible retest around 314.50 or around 314. All right. Okay, so that's it for the list of names, Joel. Thank you very much for your submission there. Oh, that's right, XOM. For some reason, I thought I was done. Minor, you said Tesla, please. Okay, I'll do it right after XOM here. So. Brian, I do believe that you did play XOM to the long side. I think like 2 weeks ago, and you did pretty well there. So congrats to you on that. But do nothing you said. This is Gold Brahma. Use these levels on Meta and QQQ. Hey, awesome. I'm glad to hear that. So hopefully to everyone as well, you guys use these levels to your advantage. Okay. And make sure you guys are always asking me questions if you guys don't know what I'm talking about or if you want me to clarify which levels I am looking at. Okay, don't stay silent. I want you guys to succeed using these levels. All right. Now, for XOM here, right? Brian, you just saw me expanding the supply level, so you must know what that means, right? So I'm still expecting energy to head lower. Okay. So first of all, before I go over XOM, I gotta go over XLE. So you've been scalping here and there on XOM this week. Oh, nice. And you've been eyeing it. Okay. Good. So for XLE, we rejected and we closed below the 10 SMA again. All right, so this is not looking too good. All right, so obviously we tried to come back to the 50 SMA, but even the mere proximity of the 50 SMA has had us reject hard today. And energy was pretty strong today. It wasn't the strongest sector, but it was one of the few strong sectors that we were looking at. and we're able to hold above the 74.40 or 0.50 level once again, right? And I like the fact that we did close above it, but this is an inverted hammer candlestick. It's an ugly wick at the top, right? This tells you there's evidence here that sellers were present, right? So hopefully we can see another move downward tomorrow on XLE below 74.50, especially if we see an overall market move lower. Sparky, you said I meant last week, but this week I've just been watching. Gotcha. Thank you for the clarification. So if you come back to XOM and kind of translate what I said on XLE to XOM here, XOM looks a lot worse. Why? Well, let me briefly remove the supply area for a second. Okay, so XOM rejected off of both the 50 and the 10. And guess what? It had an amazing, perfect retest at the 10 SMA, and then absolutely fell right back down and below the 50 SMA. Right, so this is pretty daunting for any buyers who got in today and who are holding, right? And sellers are most likely going to see a nice gap fill that we had today on this gap up open tomorrow. Okay, so watch out for this gap fill until 89.60. Okay, and I could see some more, more downside and further downside in the near-term future for energy. So I would expect to see a nice possible entry below 90.50 for puts for XOM. So if you go back to, or if you go to the 2-hour time frame here, right, you know, everything still looks a little bit bearish here. All right, we're still staying underneath the 50 SMA, which should be a support if you want to see an uptrend in a 2-hour time frame. But so far we've reclaimed the 10 and 21 SMAs thanks to the gap up that we had today. But the weakness that we had today transcends the gap up that we had today, right? So hopefully, you know, the bulls are able to hold above 90.50. But if you take a look here, if we break below 90.50, or specifically, if we break below 90.40, okay? So 90.40, if you break below this support level, this intraday support level, then this one goes straight back down. And guess what? The high that we made today would just be another lower high compared to the high that we made here on July 29th after earnings. Does that make sense? Okay, so this will be our first high. And if we do decide to plunge below tomorrow, okay, and if we move further to the downside, then this will become officially our second lower high. Hopefully that makes sense. Okay, so Tesla, so Tesla, there was big news. Okay, Elon Musk sold a lot of shares, millions of shares. Okay, and I think it was worth like $6.9 billion of shares. Or 6.9. I think it was 6.9 billion or something like that. Something about 6 billion. How about that? Okay, I forgot the exact number, but he sold that much. Right, so obviously that's going to affect the Tesla stock price. That's a lot of shares and a lot in share value. And Tesla here, I did see some put flow coming in for Tesla and a lot of call flow too. So, you know, I would say Tesla's also at the mercy of the markets, right? Like every other tech name, they're at the mercy of the CPI data and what the markets will do tomorrow, the entire market. So with Tesla here, first of all, right, this is also, okay, teetering on the bad side, well, quote unquote bad side, for buyers, excuse me, right? As sellers have came in strong today, actually, as we decide to break this uptrend that we've been holding with these higher highs, higher lows, higher highs, higher lows, and then now we broke down. And guess what? We've been officially making, okay, lower highs and lower lows. How do we know this? Well, if you take a look at this first high here, and then compare it to this high next, so this is our second lower high. And then if you take a look at this low here, okay, and then we take another look at this low here, what does this look like? A downtrend, right? So minor, if you're still here, okay, clear downtrend that's about to happen. okay, before a huge sell-off back down to, I would say, first of all, 800 and then 780. Okay, so even on the intraday time frames, like the 15-minute time frame, we're looking at a formation, a current formation of a bear flag, right? We're seeing, right? Sorry guys if my drawings are too quick. I tend to be very, very quick with my technical analysis because I'm able to see it with my naked eye. Right, so if my drawings don't look perfect, I apologize about that. But that's the reason why. I'm able to see it with my eyes, so I don't really need to draw it out, but obviously we need to draw out anything that we can see when we're doing technical analysis. It's a very, very important thing, okay? But Tesla here, with this bear flag, along with the fact that we have broken this trend to the downside, right? This uptrend to the downside, and we're making very critical pivot points that usually happens during a downtrend, right? Lower highs and lower lows. So be very, very careful tomorrow. If we reject around 855-ish, okay, 855, we could see another big break to the downside, okay? And most likely we will see a little tiny bounce around 838 before flushing again until we reach 820, okay, or 821 if you want to round up. Okay, so 820.80 or 821. Okay, so $821 will be my kind of intraday support that Tesla needs to hold if it wants to try, at least, try to get back to an uptrend. Okay, but if it flushes 821, then we're definitely heading back down to 800 and then 780. Does that make sense? Okay, so this is clear indication, right? These lower highs, lower lows are indicative of a clear downtrend on the intraday timeframes and on the daily time frame. Okay, hell, even the weekly time frame as well. Right? So we already breached the previous week's lows. So that should be telling you guys something, right? And guess what? Elon sold billions worth of shares. So we have those kind of layered factors and catalysts to this name. Okay, so that's it for tonight, guys. I apologize if I'm a little bit, here and there with my words, if I'm not being too cohesive as usual. But thank you guys for understanding for the lateness for my live tonight. But hopefully you guys do understand what went down or what could go down tomorrow for CPI data. And make sure you guys are remembering, okay, for SPY levels, 411.50 as a major level of resistance to reject off of, and the 406.80 to 407 as an area of support that we can possibly meet tomorrow if we reject off of that 411.50 and we see a huge move to the downside. Does that make sense, guys? Right, that'll be about 5 points there, okay? Less than 5 points, actually. Okay, about 4 points. Okay, so as a summary, guys, okay, as a quick summary, core CPI for July, not year over year, is expecting to go down. Okay, so they're expecting the numbers to go from 0.7% to 0.5%, right? 0.70 to 0.50. But the core CPI year over year is expected to go up from 5.9% to 6.1% from the previous period, right? And that's the one I'm going to be looking at because, like I said, the Federal Reserve is looking for the long term on what they could do to have a deep impact on inflation over the next 2 years, right? They have a horizon for inflation. They have a plan until 2024, right? They have a better, not better, but they have a more surefire plan that they want to have for 2023, but they have expanded their horizons to 2024 as well, okay? But they're looking to extinguish inflation and bring back inflation back to the 2% target by 2023, which I don't think is going to happen, but we have to see, okay? I don't think macroeconomic conditions and geopolitical tensions are going to ease up anytime soon, okay? But we can be hopeful. So who knows? But with the core CPI, okay, with that information, you should also look at the overall CPI data, the year-over-year CPI data, which they're expecting actually a decrease, which is complete opposite over the core CPI year-over-year data. Right, they're expecting a decrease of 9.1%, which is from June, to 8.7%, which will be July's number for inflation. Right, so we might be seeing, especially if we do see expected numbers, right, the actual numbers kind of in line with the expected numbers, we might see a very, very mixed reaction because the market is going to react to the core CPI and the CPI as well. But let me tell you one more thing before I leave. Okay, the market tends to react off of the CPI data first, and then the next few days, they start to realize what the core CPI was actually telling you. Okay, do you guys remember PCE? Right? So the PCE data was also still high. Right? If you guys are members of the CFO Swing Watch, you guys should know what this is. Okay, make sure you guys go back to the previous week's newsletter. I think it was 2 weeks ago, I think. All right, so make sure you guys go over that. All right, so hopefully that was a better summary on what I was trying to tell you guys when I first started the live stream. Okay, but if you guys are interested in joining, make sure you guys join by tonight. Use the second link in the description box below. Okay, take advantage of those discount codes that I have written down for you all for tiers 3 and 4. All right, and good luck trading tomorrow. I will also be live tonight, tomorrow night at 8:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time or 11:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I will not be late this time. Okay, I just had kind of an emergency, so I wasn't able to do it on time tonight. But thankfully, you guys were able to make it in time. So thank you very much for taking time out of your nightly routines and joining me tonight and listening to me. All right, so that's it for me. Good luck tomorrow. Make sure you guys are always, and remember, okay, always remember this. Work hard and trade smart. That is Charts Focus One's main mantra. Work hard and trade smart. All right? Okay. Have a great rest of your night, everyone. And don't get too sweaty tomorrow. Don't get too anxious tomorrow. All right? Just follow the data and follow the price action. Okay? I'll see you all tomorrow night. Thank you, guys.